Hey guys, welcome to Switching PC. My name is Ben. Today we're building a client PC for a client of ours, obviously. He is building two PCs actually for his daughters for Christmas. Today is the 21st, so we're going to be just in time. It was kind of a struggle to get CPUs, but we managed to get them. These are the Ryzen 5 3400Gs. We are running video cards on top of these. It's just what was available as far as budget CPUs go. Running them in the fractal design case. Yeah, let's get started. Whole goal of the build was to stay right at $1,000 for the PC, monitor, and the keyboard and mouse. So we've achieved that. Got an upgrade for them as far as the cooler goes, but yeah, let's get started. So the first component we're using actually is the B450 Aorus V2. Does not have Wi-Fi. Did not know they wanted Wi-Fi until well after they had purchased the motherboard. I didn't have another motherboard that has Wi-Fi with me, so we got some PCIe Express cards, but they'll do the trick just fine because they also have Bluetooth. So yeah, but I'm gonna get started with all this, and just to kind of show you, so that's the motherboard. We are using the Ryzen 5 3400G. It is an APU. It's just that in the budget that he was looking at the time that we were looking at it, it was either that or 3600 or 3200G or anything below. This was the first one that came in stock without being ridiculously expensive, so that's the one we went with. We are using a 970 EVO 500 gig SSD NVMe drive, 16 gig of 3200 megahertz RAM, which is plenty for light gaming. It is for his daughter. I'm actually using the cooler from a 3900 XT, which will add a little bit of cooling capacity. We have a Seasonic 550 watt power supply, fully modular, a 5500 XT Nitro Plus from Sapphire, which is, I love this card personally. I'm actually building them two computers. They're both the exact same build. I've already done one. You can see it behind me. I just have to kind of mess with the software and the RGB and all that, but this should actually help make this a little bit smooth, or pretty smooth at least. So yeah, but let's get started. This is the motherboard. As you can see, it's a B450 motherboard, AM4 socket. We're actually using the AM4 CPU cooler mount, which is partially why I'm upgrading the cooler, just so I don't have to mess with that. It makes it a little bit faster, but also because the first one of the two builds, the cooler that came with it was broken, and these are Christmas gifts for his daughters, so did not have time to go anywhere to get another cooler, so that's alright. I've had these coolers sitting around for a little bit over a year from the 3900X, and I'm not going to use them for anything, so they both get an upgrade. But yeah, so here's the motherboard. I'm going to go ahead and pull these out of here because I'll need them eventually. Pull this out. Nah, I don't need that, I think. Close this up. Put it away. Alright, so first things first, CPU. So CPU is actually, I know I've said this before for people who have been here before, but it's kind of a part that tends to scare people because it's, you know, it's a delicate part. It's one of the more expensive ones typically in the build. It's honestly also one of the easiest parts to install, but you know, it just kind of freaks people out typically. So cooling about this. Put this off to the side. So here's the thing to know. On AM4 sockets, there is a right up here, and you can't really see it in this light, but there's a little arrow. It tells you where to match the arrow that's on the CPU. On the CPU itself, on the green edge that you can kind of see around the CPU itself, there is one which in this case and in all the Ryzens that I've used cases, it's on the bottom left of the writing. If you look at the CPU and read it, it's on the bottom left. You just match that gold arrow to that corner with the arrow. So here's how that goes. Pretty simple. Grab this bar, pull it away and lift it up all the way. Take your CPU out. Try not to touch the pins if you can help it. Just because you don't want to bend them. Just line it up in the correct direction. It should drop in, and then you just pull the bar back down. Once it's in its clip, that's it. CPU's in. NVMe drive in first, then the cooler, then the RAM, just because it's a little bit easier to work the cooler with the RAM not in there yet. So here it is. One of the nice things about this motherboard was that for the price, you still get an NVMe slot that has a heatsink. So that's always a plus. What we'll do is take the screw off, take the heatsink off. Don't forget to peel this off before you close it, obviously. We do need to put one of the standoffs in there. It comes in the motherboard box. If you're not sure which one, in this case I know it's this one, but if you're not sure which one, just slot your NVMe drive in. It should go at a slight angle. It should kind of feel like it's in there. When you push it down, it should spring back up. You can see which one it is. Then you take peel it off of the back of the heatsink. There's a slot that you put this tab back in. Lower it back down as straight as you can because it is going to stick. And then you can put your screw back in. So next is going to be the cooler, the Wraith Aspire from the Ryzen 3900X. This has never been used actually. The cables are still taped in there. It still has the original paste. So I'm going to remove this because it's been sitting in a drawer for a year plus however long it sat on a store shelf. So we're going to repaste it. Thermal paste first. AMD CPUs, especially Ryzen. I personally like to do either an XO line, not necessarily just a blob in the center. On Intel CPUs, the blob is definitely plenty, but the IHS actually has more places where it gets hot on the Ryzen one, so you do want a little bit more spread. And that's it. That's on all the way. No movement at all when you wiggle it. Which don't do it too hard, obviously, but yeah. So that's the CPU cooler all the way in. Next, I'm going to put the RAM in. So we've got crucial Ballistix RGB RAM. This build will actually have some RGB. The case came with 2 RGB fans. It's got an RGB light strip, and I got the exhaust fan to go with it. That matches the ones that come with the case, plus the RGB on the motherboard and the one on the cooler. So there's some RGB in the chipset heatsink up here, and I believe these lines right here are RGB as well. I don't remember. But yeah, so the RAM, very simple. This motherboard is dual channel. This RAM is dual channel. In this specific use case, they don't recommend one or the other as long as you space them out by 1. So we're gonna go on the outside, just because that's what I did on the other build, and trying to have them match. So just push it until it clicks. Make sure you're going in the right orientation. You will see it instantly if it doesn't match up, by the way, but it's very simple. This case actually really surprised me yesterday for the price. So, it is actually from Phanteks. It is a Eclipse P360A. So it does come with 2 RGB fans on the front already. Like I said, we've got a third one for the back. But it's got a cable management panel off to the side on the front that's actually, it does the job pretty damn well. I was surprised at how easy it was. Now, don't get me wrong, I did have to completely undo the cables that they already had in there and redo them from scratch. Just because I was not happy with how organized they were and how they kept crisscrossing and the way they bunched them up. But overall, for the price of this case, considering it came with 2 fans, it's actually pretty nice. It does come with a fan, with an RGB controller for the fans. That all you gotta do is wire it up when you do it. So yeah, so here's the front of the case. I know it's kind of hard to see over there because of the way the lighting is, and I'm sorry, but I've got better lighting coming. But yeah, just to give you an idea. And then the back of it right here, so you can see over here on this side, all of this is really nice to actually run all your cables. It all goes through here, all goes straight down to the basement where the power supply is. It makes it really simple to actually hide all your cables. One of the nice things too is the fans have a lot of space to breathe because this is mesh on the front. You can see my shirt right through it. You can see my hand right through it. But it will still filter out. I mean, yeah, it does mean cleaning, but it's nice. And it will show just enough of the RGB through it that it's not, obnoxious for no reason. Grab our motherboard. I do want to make sure I run this cable behind it for right now, but it can go in that slot, which is actually where it's gonna go. Right here. Line up so what I tend to do is I line up the bottom left hole first, and then the rest of it should line up once you have it in there. Your IO shield, which is pre-installed, should match right up. There we go. So motherboard's in. Now we're up to doing cable management, fans, things like that. So the first thing I'm gonna do personally is add this fan. I like to add everything that has cables, right? Then manage all the cables kind of at once. Depending on how much I'm gonna have. If I'm doing a build with 9 fans that each have 2 wires or 2 cables, one for the fan power and one for the RGB, I will most likely run anything that has bigger cables first, and then the small ones. But that's not the case here. We're really just doing 3 fans. They are daisy chainable on the RGB side of it, which makes it pretty convenient. I'm using a splitter for the 2 front ones to go to the same port, and then the top one stays on the top area, so it's all pretty simple. In this specific case, because it's an exhaust fan going on the back, I want this side to face the inside of the case so it draws air out of the case, and it will be right back here. Could start running power supply cables. So for our power supply, we are using a Seasonic GX550. It is a 80 plus gold rated power supply. It is fully modular. Seasonic typically has a couple of these zip ties and Velcro ties with their power supplies, which is always nice. So just grab the cables out of it. What I like to do is install the cables first, because I know where the power supply is going to be. I don't have to actually have it in there and plug them all the way in just yet. So I'm just going to grab the cables. Anyway, this video card is actually really nice design. So originally we were going for a Sapphire 5500 XT Pulse. I looked at both the AMD and the NVIDIA options. I was actually trying to go for an NVIDIA option just because this is for kids. I don't really want them to have to mess with settings and drivers and all that too much. AMD is, or at least was in that generation, a little bit more complicated. It's kind of the main thing that we tend to hear from people. Even though I literally had zero issues with my 5700 XT, I know people such as 11 who I believe had no issues with the 5700 XT. He had other issues with his computer, but not the 5700 XT itself. So I've known plenty of people that didn't run into any issues with the AMD cards, but there were still a lot of complaints about them. But I really like the design of this card personally. So either way, like I was telling you, we were looking at NVIDIA, couldn't find anything that wasn't super overpriced, because I don't know if any of you guys have looked at computer parts lately, but CPUs and video cards are insanely hard to find. You know, people are paying over retail for 3600 CPUs. Hell, I was at Micro Center earlier today. Micro Center, who's usually not that type of company, has the 3600s non-X at $249. They had them in stock and people were buying them. But yeah, you know, 4 months ago, they were $160. But anyway, NVIDIA cards were way overpriced. At first, when I sent the client the list of parts to get, I sent them the Sapphire 5500 XT Pulse. It was listed at $230 when I looked at it. He called me back, or texted me back 30 minutes later, saying that the computer was $200 over budget and I needed to revise the list. When I pulled the list back up, the Sapphire 5500 XT Pulse was $399. So it had gone up $200. So instead we went with the Nitro Plus, which is the model above. It was $10 more. He was okay with it. But this one adds a couple of neat features. It's got better cooling than the Pulse. It does have a switched BIOS, so it's got an overclock BIOS versus a standard quiet BIOS. Sapphire Tricks can control the lighting on it. It's got RGB on the front as well as on the fans. And it's actually really cool. Cooler design, to be honest. If you really look at it, you can see all these fins, and they're spaced out and thin enough that you can kind of see me through it. Like, I can see you guys right now. Well, I can see the camera. Obviously, that would be a little bit weird if I could see you. But yeah, I mean, it's just It's a neat design. I like it. I had a 5700 XT Nitro Plus that I really enjoyed that I was sending to a friend and it got lost by UPS. But that's besides the point. And you kind of get to see what roughly $1,000 can get you total. Just a little bit different from what I feel like I'm going to normally do. Because for the most part, it's going to be just the towers and just when I'm trying to boot and post and all that, it'll be on my own monitor, right? This is like a full setup. Basically, need a desk and a chair and you're good to go. Well, some speakers, or you can use headphones. So here goes that. I'm just going to use the first monitor that I used. I will test the other one later. But these monitors, I will give you at least the names and specs. They are the Dell. Yep, that's all it says on the box. That is literally, I thought I was joking. That is literally all it says on the box. Dell 24-inch, that's the whole thing. I'll have to pull them up. But to be exact, it's the SE2417HGX. So from memory, these are a 24-inch 1080p, 70 hertz refresh rate, 1 millisecond. 75 hertz refresh rate, I'm sorry. Dual HDMI port. They do have FreeSync. Alright, so one thing that a lot of people freak out about is when the very first time they boot an AMD, specifically Ryzen computer, and it does this. And it reboots. And it will do it a few times, typically 3 to 5 times, and it looks like it gets stuck in a boot loop. It is completely normal. I have never had an AMD Ryzen CPU-based computer not do this on the first post, but eventually it posts. Hell, actually, posted so fast on the last one that I couldn't even get to the BIOS. Which reminds me, yeah, it just posted. I need a keyboard. I need a mouse. I'm just gonna reuse the mouse and the keyboard, I guess. So for a keyboard, we actually went with Redragon Shiva. It is not mechanical. I know, boo. Keep in mind, this is for a young girl. I was a little bit worried about actuation force and all that. This is also a very inexpensive keyboard. Which, you know, I was trying to save money for the budget. I would rather have most of the money spent on the computer parts themselves. Right? And she can upgrade, they can upgrade the keyboard later. Hell, I'll build them one, that's fine. But yeah. Now for the mouse, we went with the Logitech G502 Hero, which is a nice mouse. It is wired, but again, budget kind of wins on that. But you know, they'll have some RGB on the desktop itself as well, which is kind of nice because the mouse, both the mouse and the keyboard have it. I haven't really attempted typing on this. I know I'm not going to be a huge fan either way. It's not terrible, honestly, for a membrane keyboard, but it's not great. But it does have media keys, which might be a big deal to a young girl. I don't know, honestly. But yeah, so I'm trying to get into the BIOS so I can at least set up my XMP RAM for dual channel, because I'm sure it's set wrong. There we go. BIOS has been reset. Clear CMOS. So in these BIOSes from Gigabyte, what you want to go to is under MIT, which is the first tab. You go to Advanced Memory Settings, and the very first thing is Extreme Memory Profile, XMP. It's disabled by default. Go to Profile 1. It should pick the right speed by itself. In this specific case, it did, 3200 megahertz. If it didn't, go to the System Memory Multiplier, changing from automatic to your RAM speed. Now make sure you pick a RAM speed that actually matches your CPU and your motherboard, so that it can work with it. But this worked just fine. Yeah, we're actually good. That's pretty much it for tonight, guys. It's 11:45. Been working all day, and then this. But yeah, definitely a fun little build. Nice little case. Would recommend it. You know, again, like I was saying, for $1,000, the fact that you're getting, you know, something that will game at 1080p 60 just fine. The fact that you're getting something that's upgradable, and that game's current at 1080p 60. Keep in mind, when you upgrade a video card, this one doesn't just go in the trash. You resell it. We paid $240 for it. Probably get $180 back from it. $60 spent is pretty minimal when you go that route. Especially the way components have been lately. They're not really losing any value. I mean, if you look online, there's people selling 3600 processors for more than retail that are used. So, you know, these are people that paid $180 for the processor, selling them for $250 used. So, yeah. So I mean, all in all, for the price point, it's a lot of performance offered by Ryzen in general. But yeah, I'm just happy that I got to build two of these for two of this exact same machine for this client's daughters, simply because they're currently not gamers. That's what they wanted for Christmas. I think it's cool that he went with PCs rather than just getting a console. And it wasn't because of the availability of the consoles, because he contacted me well before the PS5 came out. It's just he wanted it to be PC, and they're both getting PC setups. I'm actually gonna help him set them up and all that on Christmas Eve and get it sorted out. But yeah, until next time, I will see you guys then. Please, if you're new, don't forget to follow so you can get notifications whenever I go online. Probably going to start doing it more frequently than I'm done redoing the studio. For the people that were here before, it's obviously a massive difference in sound, video quality, and just feel of it in general. There's more upgrades coming, but they're not as major, meaning that I'm not turning down jobs just so I can keep working on this room, because it was a lot of work. But yeah, please don't forget, click on follow. That way you can get notified. Help me get to 50, and there will be a giveaway done for followers once I reach 50. So yeah, we'll be giving away a PC of some kind, or some parts or something. I'll figure it out. Maybe a custom keyboard. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next stream.